Hey everybody, it's the Mad Master here. I'm doing a video about something that kind of has been bothering me for a while, and I'm sure this is going to piss off a lot of my audience, and I don't really give a shit. But it's this whole notion. There's two things that are really dumb that get perpetuated by the right wing, and that's that fascism is left wing, or the other one that's really dumb is the idea that the whole notion of the Southern switch is a fallacy. And I've been thinking about this for a while because, you have Dinesh D'Souza or some dumb fuck like that arguing these points, and they really don't make any sense. They're not valid, and I see it in a lot of right wing commentary and stuff. Even people that I like I watch Stick Sex and Hammer and some other people. I watch Salty Cracker. I watch some of these guys. I watch the far left people too, like Jackson Hinkle, Jimmy Dore, Primo Radical or Hardlines Media, all these people, right? Vanguard. So I see this happening, and I think it's really dumb because, for one, if you read the history of fascism, it's really not supposed to be left or right, according to Mussolini. It's more a third way without the problems of capitalism or the problems of socialism. So when people say it's a left-wing ideology, it's almost like, you're thinking inside this box and this dichotomy that cannot make sense by that definition. Now, granted, the arguments against or for this idea, Nazism's left wing. They said National Socialist. See the socialist. Most of the commentary by these people are so dumb that are pushing this. It's not even worth arguing. It's just self-explanatory. Now, Six X and Hammer himself has some okay, semi-cogent arguments about this because authoritarianism being government, if you think about government control being left wing, but really these wings and these definitions are so dumb at this point and so outdated in a certain way. It had something to do with French, the French Revolution, which side of the parliament you were on or whatever. It's so dumb, and you have the political compass, which, obviously I'm in the lower quadrant, like going towards the more libertarian side, but definitely in the green quadrant. Even if I retake it today, I'm probably in the green quadrant. Sorry to disappoint people. But the whole thing about this notion that fascism is left-wing is just so egregiously disconnected from the reality of history. And let's look at history, and that it's so stupid and foolish. Now, it depends on what you consider authoritarianism and leftism. There's left anarchists that do not believe in top-down control. Does that make them right-wing libertarians? They may even, be against ANCAPs in many ways. It's a lot more complicated than these people make it. So anytime they're trying to do this mental gymnastics against something that's fascist or far right, these people or these conservatives are like, oh, well, fascism is left wing, so I can attack it too. It fits in my brain. It's just so dumb. So now that I've obliterated that talking point, I'm on to the next one. And that one is even dumber because I was on YouTube once, and I wish I could find this list. I think it's on one of my old hard drives. I will bring it up one day, maybe. The fact that there was a Southern switch is just a settled part of history. And it's not even that you have to even disagree with the Republican ideas or right-wing ideas. It just means that it's this mental gymnastics people want to play about this. Now, let's just tell the truth about reality. The Democrats, when the Southern switch happened, some of the Democrats remained in the Democratic Party, like Robert Byrd, and Democrats that were in the Democratic Party who weren't part of the KKK or whatever continued to defend these people and say, oh, they changed, blah, blah, blah. Sure. Now that's, if they didn't really change, that is a moral flaw and detriment to the Democrats, which I think is a awful party at this point. By the way, I shouldn't. I'm not going to beat around the bush. But from a historical perspective, the Democrats saw that they had this new voting bloc in the early '60s. They could, the minority population, they could, count on the big cities to get elected, get votes. So they changed their rhetoric, they changed their policies, and there's some opportunism and there's some obvious, maybe considerable real life concern for those groups too. Now we can argue how, people can argue all day about how the a lot of Lyndon Johnson's Great Society programs were inadvertently racist in this patronizing way or whatever on these little semantics like that, and that's fine. But there's no doubt there was a switch in the ideology of the parties in the 60s, beginning in like the 40s, like 30s and 40s, but really culminated in the 60s between the two parties. You still had like the Northeastern Republicans that were more moderate, like Rockefeller, and originally the Bushes, even though that could be argued at after a certain point. Certainly they were not as concerned with, giving people civil rights or stuff like that. But the Southern, Democrats, so the South used to be full of Democrats. I mean, why would that happen? Why would they just disappear from being elected down there if there was no Southern switch? These people it just totally goes over their head. Name me like a huge amount of Southern Democrats right now. It's red region, It doesn't make any sense, these people, what they say about there was no Southern switch. There was no Southern switch. It's like, this guy gave me a list. Anyways, about the YouTube thing. This guy gave me a list of like 75 people that switched parties in the 60s because of the civil rights movement and because of integration and everything. So, not to mention the Southern strategy, with which many people have come out and said that were involved with it, that it was racist. I mean, it's these types of points that need, just like with the abortion thing with the Republicans right now. It's like, if they want to win, they got to just face their history, face facts. Same with the Democrats. They got to, neoliberalism has to be faced and conquered. These things are terrible for the terrible things that have been part of their history. It's like, but people want to deny it. And Republicans and right-wingers are like, the Southern switch never happened. Democrats were always about slavery. And yeah, you can argue that these neoliberal policies only benefit rich white people. There's nothing wrong with saying that. And some of the tokenism and pandering is just a facade and cover for actual racism. That's fine. But to say that the Southern switch never happened, and to say that fascism is left-wing, it's the dumbest thing, some of the dumbest stuff. Like, it sounds like the dumbest Dinesh D'Souza, Candace Owens, or Dave Rubin things that could be said. And get the morons out of these parties. I think someone like, Tara Warwick, or even Razor Fist, or even, like some of these guys, some of these commentators, some of these right-wing commentators, I mean, I disagree with them on a great many things. Or even, but they have 1,000 more brain cells than some of these brain dead idiots that are arguing these things. I mean, I'm not saying that. I mean, I know I disagree with Sticks, Stacks, and Hammer about this one point, and some of these younger commentators actually make these older boomerish and grifter type of people seem really dumb, And that's, I'm not saying that should be like, William F. Buckley made people seem dumb. I mean, most right-wing commentators don't even have an ounce of his intellect or astute observations that he had. And I disagree with the guy. I think he was kind of a, Gore Vidal was right in calling him fascist in a way. But to pretend that Nazism, which was the objective purpose of Nazism, was to go against Bolshevism and Judaism, period. If it was so left-wing, Why do they go against Bolshevism? I mean, it was they wanted to destroy communism. They hated communism. That's why you had Rock Against Communism. The Nazi, these neo-Nazi punk bands had these record labels and stuff in the 80s. So why would they do that? Why would they be so obsessed with communism if they were left-wing? I mean, they would try to if they were like anarchists, they'd say, well, I agree with some of it, but we got to get you to our side or something like that. The Nazis are not fucking left-wing. And the Southern Switch actually fucking happened. I'm sorry to burst your bubble. Now, I think there might be another switch happening right now. Don't get me wrong. This is going to get, evolve into this. I think the parties might be switching again. I think a switch happened, but I think there might be a switch now going on. Populism on the right might get, there might be more leftist populism in there seeping in. And the parties might do another switch because they have before. It doesn't happen overnight. The irony is we do have in a certain way, say what you will about him, Donald Trump to thank for this, because he was giving those talking points. Him and Bernie were the anti-establishment candidates, okay? And I'm not a fan of Trump, but as I've said before, but 20 years from now, if the Republicans are the party of the people and party of the poor, huddled masses, and the Democrats are the party of the rich elites, then that switch really did occur. So just ponder that for a while. That's about all.